Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for attending this webinar with Fullscript and Dr. Trevor Cates today. My name is Kaylee. I am with the marketing team here at Fullscript, and we're very excited to have Dr. Cates with us today to talk about the skin microbiome and how we can use an integrative approach both internally and externally to restore balance and healthy skin, among many other things I know. Before we do get started, though, I want to let everyone know that this is being recorded, and every registrant will get access to the recording in their email after the event, as well. All Fullscript webinars live on fullscript.com/webinars, so we will have the video up there as well, and you can access anytime. Another little point I want to make too is that on your GoToWebinar dashboard, you will see a questions section. If throughout the presentation you have questions, feel free to add them there. We will have a little bit of time at the end for a live Q&A with Dr. Cates today. So very excited for that. You can add them throughout the presentation as we go. Again, I'd like to thank Dr. Trevor Cates for being here. If you don't know, Trevor Cates is an author of the USA Today and Amazon best-selling book, Clean Skin from Within, and the founder of The Spa Doctor, a natural skincare and supplement company. She was the first woman licensed as a naturopathic doctor in the state of California and currently lives in Park City, Utah, where she helps patients from around the world achieve graceful aging and glowing skin. She then featured on various TV shows, including The Doctors, Extra, and PBS, and she hosts the Spa Doctor podcast. I know that's just a really quick run through. There's much, much more to talk about, but I'm going to pass it over to you, Dr. Cates, and you can take it away, and I will come back in towards the end, and we can have a live Q&A.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And it's great to be here virtually with everyone. And I'm very passionate about skin. I had my own issues with skin as a child, and it's what the recovery path to that is what led me to naturopathic medical school. And I've been practicing 21 years now. So it's very much a passion of mine, and so I want to help others be able to help people with skin. I'm not doing a lot of patient care anymore, so I'm excited to help other people have success with helping patients with skin, because inevitably, if you're seeing patients, you're going to see skin problems because they are so common. And so today I'm going to kind of do an overview, and I'm going to touch a little bit on two of the most common skin issues: acne, atopic dermatitis, and also aging. People, it's like people don't want to look older than they are. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. Those are kind of the biggest things that I get. But really overall, if you have, whenever you have patients looking at their skin, it's just such a great tool to be able to help them on their journey. So today, what we're going to be talking about are how the skin microbiota actually becomes disrupted, what signs to look for in patients, the connection with the gut microbiome, and how to use an integrative approach. And that is doing it both internally and externally. So that's what we're covering today. And so let's first talk about healthy skin. And in a healthy state, skin, our largest organ, it provides that protection, temperature regulation, helps it maintain hydration. It's constantly renewing and regenerating itself. So, our skin is this barrier to the outside world. And when it's there for a reason. It's there to protect our bodies. It's there to, and it's important for it to maintain homeostasis. The thing is that we can have problems with our skin, and that barrier function starts to break down, and that's where we get something called leaky skin. And a lot of people talk about leaky gut, but yes, you can have leaky skin too, and it's very similar if you think about it. I love this picture of the bucket with the holes in it, so you get the idea. It's just like the skin, when the skin becomes more sensitive, the protective barrier breaks down, and this is partly due to imbalances in the skin microbiota. That's part of why this can start to break down, because the skin microbiota help provide that barrier function of the skin, and when it's damaged, it just can't function as it's designed. So with that means that the skin is going to be more susceptible to breaking out, to a number of different skin issues: acne, atopic dermatitis, redness, irritation, very sensitive skin. So I had this issue, and I still have a tendency to it, where you have such sensitive skin, and so many of your patients who probably experience this, where they're reactive to a lot of different things that they put on their skin, and part of that is due to the barrier function of the skin, leaky skin occurring, and so what we want to do is we want to build back that barrier function. So really, I love to look at skin as like, I call it our magic mirror. Feel free to say this to your patients if you want. It gives you messages about what's going on with the skin. And we want to use this as practitioners. We use this as a tool to help us understand what's going on with our patient's health. And so educating our patients, like when your skin is red, irritated, dry, it's breaking out, it seems to be aging faster than other people your age, that's a sign that something's out of balance, and we want to pay attention. And with what I've done, with the research I've done, and in my book, Clean Skin from Within, I talk about 6 root causes behind skin issues: inflammation, oxidative damage, hormonal imbalances, blood sugar issues, nutritional deficiencies, and microbiome disturbances. And of course, as you know, these root causes are, when we talk, a naturopathic doctor, I wouldn't be a naturopathic doctor if I didn't talk about root causes and these root causes. And we know that these are related to so many different health issues, right? And so this is just, and again, this tie-in of skin being an outer reflection of our overall health and how it all ties in together. So when we address the root causes with skin, we're also helping address root causes with so many other common health issues that we see with our patients. And I'm going to focus a lot on microbiome disturbances today, but I'll also talk a little about nutritional deficiencies. I don't really have time to go into a ton on all of these, but of course, inflammation ties into this. And but really, when we use this overall approach that I'm going to talk about today, we really address all of these. So many of the microbiome studies we look at today, they focus on the gut microbiota, which is great. We need those, and it's been extremely valuable to show the research aligning with what we've been talking about in integrative naturopathic medicine for so many years, about how the gut is connected to the rest of the body, including the skin. And but the skin microbiota have been getting more attention lately in the research. There's more and more coming out. It's a very exciting time for skin microbiome and the research on that, and it's still unfolding. So there's a lot we still don't know, in both which microorganisms are growing on the skin and which ones are healthy, which ones are commensal, which ones are pathogenic, and how do we restore the balance. And part of the controversy, or the difficulties with the research, is there's so much variability in from one person to another, and it has to do with our age, our sex, where we live, who lives with us, do we have pets, do we have other people living in the home with us, where do we work. Because our skin is on the outside of our body, it's just constantly changing, and so it's been, it's a bit hard in the research to figure out exactly what is good and what is bad. But the good news is that we're understanding that not all bacteria are bad, right? That's really a thing of the past. And we understand that with the gut, and we're also understand that with the skin. The gut and skin are both densely vascularized. They're important for immune, neuroendocrine roles. There's a lot of importance now that we're understanding of the role of the skin. So we want to take care of it both from the inside out, as well as what we're putting on the skin. And we also know there's a huge surface area that we're talking about with the skin. And if we look at the size of the skin, the surface area of the skin versus surface of the GI tract, we really want to pay attention to this. We've been paying so much attention to the gut, and we still want to do that, but we also need to pay attention to the skin, because not only to help our patient's skin get better, but also because this is a route where people can get exposed to endocrine disrupting chemicals, other toxins in the environment, and with these disruptions in the microbiome and the homeostasis in the skin, even hormones within the skin, that comes in, that gets out of balance, it can actually impact the rest of the body. So we really want to pay attention to the skin. So of course, the epidermis has a lot of different microorganisms. We talk a lot about the bacteria because we know a lot more about the bacteria than sometimes some of the other components of the microorganisms on the skin. But we know that with these imbalances of the skin microorganisms, it can lead to a lot of different skin issues. And so what we want to do is we want to restore this balance to help with the natural lipid barrier of the skin immune system, and this ultimately helps with preventing and addressing skin issues like acne, eczema, really a lot of skin eruptions, and rosacea is another common one I see, and also premature aging is of course one that, you know, we're living older, so we want our skin to keep up with us, right? So with the skin microbiota, we have about 1 million bacteria that inhabit each centimeter of our skin. So it's a lot of bacteria, and this is just bacteria. We also have fungi and a lot of other microorganisms that live on the skin, but this is just an example of how much we have on our skin. And it really ranges from one area of the body to another. So the area around the nose versus behind the ears, behind the knees, the stomach, the back, all these different areas, it really ranges from one region to another, and also from one individual to another. Like I said, lifestyle, environment, hygiene practices, diet, age, sex, these all impact the skin microbiome and how it shows up. And this is just an example of the bacteria on our skin. If you see this diagram of the different areas around the body and how diverse it is. And a lot of the research is focused on the face because a lot of skin issues that people are concerned about, especially acne, are on the face, but we also want to be concerned about other areas of the body, especially if we're looking at acne breakouts on the back, on the chest, and eczema, and how that can show up in all kinds of areas around the body. And then, of course, you know, fungal infections around the feet and all these different areas where we see such a huge variety of the diversity of the bacteria. We do know that, of course, that antibiotics have played a role in some of the imbalances that we are experiencing. And of course, antibiotic prescriptions that are common in dermatology. They're still common. They've, you know, of course, dermatologists are being more mindful of this now, I believe. And because of the research that's come out about the skin microbiome and things like integrative dermatology and these conferences that are coming out to help spread the word that we really want to be mindful when it comes to skin and using antibiotics, just like we've been understanding that it impacts the gut microbiome, but we also want to understand that this can impact the skin microbiome, and you know, we have these superbugs and all these imbalances that are resulting in part due to all the antibiotic use. And so that really is one thing that is changing, and we hope to continue to change. So what we want to do is prevent and address skin dysbiosis, just like we want to prevent and address gut dysbiosis. So we want to stimulate the activity growth of the beneficial microorganisms, improve the skin barrier function. So we want to do these together, and I'll talk more about exactly how we do that. And you know, we want to pay particular attention for our patients with skin issues, dry, sensitive skin, you know, chronic skin issues, reactive skin after procedures, or when people have had a lot of overzealous hygiene routines, like during a pandemic, and also when taking medications like antibiotics and corticosteroids. And then we have this gut-skin connection, which is super important when we're talking about addressing it from the inside out. And we know some of the things that impact the gut microbiome. We know about the changes that occur during, or the opportunities that occur during a vaginal birth, and if that doesn't happen. But you know, now we're knowing even more about the microbiome, and that it can even start before that. So with age, exposure to toxins, stress, infections, dietary choices, medications, that can all impact the gut microbiome. And this in turn then not only impacts our digestion and absorption of nutrients, but it also impacts directly the skin microbiome. So all of this approach, the approach to it starts from within. This healthy skin really starts from within. And in my book, I talk about 4 different areas for a clean skin from within approach: clean plate, clean slate, clean body, clean mind. And I bring this up because I really do think that it's important to address all 4 of these different areas. Clean plate of the foods that we eat, clean slate are the things, the products that we put on our skin. Clean body is having to do with detoxification pathways and supporting our body's detoxification pathways and exposure to toxins and other ways. And clean mind, of course, is about stress management and the importance of that. So I'm going to touch a little bit on these today, but really the big focus is on the first 2. So with a clinical approach, then of course my book is I wrote for the public, and when I'm talking to you all, we're talking about more of a clinical approach to that. So I'm going to go dig a little bit deeper here about what we're doing when we look at addressing skin from the inside out. So some of the biggest things we want to do are avoid triggers that both from gut issues, the things that trigger inflammatory pathways, that trigger imbalances. We want to enhance the gut microbiome. We want to reduce inflammation, and we want to address nutritional deficiencies and balance hormones. These are all extremely important when we're looking at addressing those 6 root causes that I mentioned. And of course, being in clinical practice, you know a lot of us already about food triggers. And some of the big ones that we see are dairy, gluten, soy, eggs, peanuts, tree nuts, and shellfish. And this is with triggers for the more common skin issues like eczema, atopic dermatitis, and acne. So of course, we want to look at avoiding triggers. We want to identify and avoid these triggers, but we don't want to just avoid the trigger. We also want to help heal the gut at the same time. And of course, that's really, really important because you don't, there are some people when you start figuring out what are their triggers, there might be so many triggers that they just can't live a normal life. And that usually, of course, ties into leaky gut and healing the gut, having that GI support to really calm down that internal inflammation, and then also restoring the gut microbiome, looking for gut dysbiosis issues so that we can get that inflammation down, heal the gut so that people don't have so many of these triggers. And then you can usually narrow it down or figure out, okay, so if we occasionally have some of these triggers, they're not going to create as much of a problem. But then for some people, there are always going to be certain trigger foods that are always going to be an issue that they need to avoid, especially if we're looking at more of an IgE type of immune response versus an IgG, or a more of an intolerance or sensitivity versus an allergy. So, I mean, I guess going back to that, I do think that doing food allergy and intolerance testing can be good, but I don't actually recommend doing it if you have a very person that's extremely inflamed, have extremely inflamed skin, and has signs of gut dysbiosis and leaky gut. If they have that, I would say if you do the testing, they're gonna come back and they have so many reactive things that it's gonna be frustrating for them to even manage. So what I found is that it's actually better with those people to start with healing the gut, do some gut dysbiosis testing first, and address those issues first. And then as their system starts to calm down a little bit, then you'll get a better understanding of what their true trigger foods are. And then, in the meantime, you can take them off some of the most common foods. In my book, I talk about 10 different items for people to eliminate. I have a 2-week program. It's, avoiding these 10 things and then reintroducing them. And so I'm sure that you can do something similar in your practice. So what I talk about in my book is, the clean plate foods are the foods that are rich in healthy fats and oils, rich in antioxidants, probiotics and prebiotics, collagen boosting nutrients, cleansing and anti-inflammatory foods, which are, of course, not only helpful for the skin, but also helpful for the body overall. And then we want to really focus a lot on foods that feed the microbiome, that help support a healthy gut microbiome, fiber-rich foods, prebiotic foods like dandelion greens, garlic, onions, leeks, chicory. Broccoli also helps support the gut microbiome. And eating really a variety of produce, we know the research on that as well, that getting people out of the habit of always eating the same foods, even if they're eating healthy and they're avoiding some of the big trigger foods. If they're not eating a variety of produce, they're missing out on an opportunity to really diversify their microbiome in the gut. And then, of course, there are certain probiotic rich foods that we can consume, and like kimchi and sauerkraut. And then when we move into supplements, I don't have a ton of time to talk about supplements today. I wanted to talk about some of my favorite ones that I oftentimes recommend to patients and talk about in my book, and that are some of the major ones to think about when you think about skin, probiotics being one of them. And probiotics is somewhat controversial right now. Part of that is that we're learning so much more about the microbiome of the body, and there are opportunities for testing to help individualize this approach and finding out which probiotics and which ones and how to take them and when to take them. This is, I'm not going to go into all of that today, but of course, very much understanding that you want to individualize this as much as possible with people, finding the right probiotics. And because that can help with that gut skin connection. There's tons of research. I have a few things listed in the research here, but there are so many more. Essential fatty acids, of course, so important. I'm going to talk more about that. Vitamin D, of course, the support for the immune system, and the skin is interconnected with this. Zinc is extremely important for wound healing and, of course, immune function as well. So vitamin A helps, and it's particularly a good one for people with acne. So that's why I put in some of the actions that vitamin A helps with, and helping with that sebum production, balancing. It also is great for other skin issues too, but it's a big one of my favorites for acne. Of course, you want to be mindful of the dose on that. So probiotics, here's some of the research. There's plenty more. You can just go to PubMed and just put in gut brain skin or gut skin and probiotics, and you'll find all kinds of positive research. And then essential fatty acids, again, omega-3s and evening primrose oil, in particular for atopic dermatitis, and also GLAs, evening primrose oil, blackcurrant, borage oil. Those help with reducing prostaglandins, leukotrienes. So it helps with both. I found it to be both helpful for acne and atopic dermatitis. And again, evening primrose oil, a big one for some of the skin problems that we, common skin problems that we see. So now I want to move into talking about the external approach. So what I call the clean slate. We want to avoid toxic ingredients, replace with nourishing. But then with you, I want to take it a step further. When we support the skin microbiome, we want to avoid ingredients that disrupt the natural microbiome and trap in heat. So what that means is we want to avoid ingredients that are antibacterial and antimicrobial in an extreme way. Now, there are certain natural substances that help sort of balance the microbiota, and they don't actually kill off the good bacteria. So there's a balance with that. But we also want to think about things like occlusives, ingredients that trap in heat and moisture, because those are oftentimes used, or especially for things like atopic dermatitis, to help keep that skin barrier function, to kind of replace almost the skin barrier function that's missing in these people. So you oftentimes use these occlusive agents, these ingredients, but the problem is that when we use a synthetic form of these, they trap in heat and moisture. But when a person is living their life, they're going out in the sunshine, they're exercising, they're getting in the sauna, or whatever those healthy things that you're recommending to do, if they have ingredients like dimethicone, as an example, dimethicone, and it's in so many different moisturizers and makeups for women because it gives people that dewy, glowy look. It's also in a lot of atopic dermatitis, eczema kind of products to trap in moisture, and so what happens though is you go into heat, you warm up, and the body isn't able to allow that heat to escape because it's because of the occlusive properties of those ingredients. So it traps in the heat and moisture. So the concern is that, first of all, people start might notice like, wow, my face is really flushed when I work out. Well, that's partly because you're using these ingredients that are keeping in the heat. But then if you think about it, what's happening with the microbiome, the bacteria under the skin, if it's heating up under there and they've got this moisture and the heat, you're going to have eventually, or maybe even short term, have imbalances in the skin microbiota. So we want to be really careful with what we're putting on our skin and what we're recommending for our patients. And also talk about acidity and the mild acidity of ingredients. I'll talk more about that in a moment. So we want to, this is a slide particularly for atopic dermatitis, which it gets really tricky with atopic dermatitis because if you have a more moderate to severe case of atopic dermatitis, these people are going to come in so inflamed. And believe, I remember this as a child. Anything I put on my skin was I just reacted to it, whether it was natural or synthetic. I can even like water even was irritating to my skin. Soaps, anything that I put on my skin, my body was reacting to it. So sometimes we do want to use a little bit of pharmaceuticals to kind of help calm down the system in some cases, especially in severe cases, and using natural in addition to some of the conventional treatments for topicals, just to calm down the system. And this is really the case with acne as well. Sometimes people, their acne is so bad that you want to kind of calm down the system a little bit with a combination of a truly integrative approach. But these are some of the natural things to think about. Protective qualities to the skin. You want to protect that barrier function of the skin with things like shea butter and using humectants like glycerin and sodium hyaluronate and barrier repair ingredients, anti-inflammatory ingredients, and also those made with mild acidity. So here are some of the ingredients that there's so many really great powerhouse ingredients in the skincare world and as far as natural skincare solutions, but I want to go through some of the ones in the research on the ones that are some of my favorites that I actually have included in the Spa Doctor skincare line because I've just found them to be so helpful. Initially, what I was doing with things like niacinamide or nicotinamide is I would be using my compounding pharmacy here in Park City. I would have them do these as topicals for me, and I just call them into the compounding pharmacy and use those topically for my patients. Sometimes I still do that, and we now have it in the body moisturizer of the Spa Doctor product, so I just typically recommend that for people instead. But this is, if you use a compounding pharmacy, this is a nice way to get in some of these ingredients I'm going to be talking about. And of course, if you are you do order from Fullscript, the Spa Doctor skincare line is available at Fullscript. So bonus. All right, so niacinamide, so many great studies. This is just one example of its anti-inflammatory properties, as well as helping support the skin barrier function, helping reduce water loss, and that's particularly helpful for atopic dermatitis. But niacinamide, nicotinamide has also been shown to be helpful for acne and also for premature aging. So it is a powerhouse ingredient that I really love to see in face products as well as body products. Oatmeal is a really great one, especially for atopic dermatitis. We have it in the body products at the Spa Doctor, and you can find them in certain soaps and shampoos and things. You want to make sure that it's gluten-free, and we're really careful with that at Spa Doctor, making sure that we're not going to irritate our people that have sensitivities to gluten, and because it's so common that we see that. But one of the more common ones out there, I don't think that that's particularly gluten-free. So a lot of people are using that one because of the oats in it. But then people with gluten sensitivities and very reactive might have problems with it. But oats in of itself, they do have a very soothing property to them, very healing to the skin. And really, they're great for all skin types, but particularly for atopic dermatitis. Aloe vera, this is no surprise. We all love aloe, right? Having an aloe plant in the house or getting aloe vera gel in skincare products is great to help repair and inflame skin. It's soothing, calming, not just for burns, but just everyday skincare. Argan is one of my favorite oils, and we certainly love that in our products. And so it's rich in vitamin E, fatty acids, carotenoids, phytosterols, and it helps restore. It's one of these oils that's really helpful for the acid mantle of the skin. And but it doesn't clog pores. It doesn't cause more acne breakouts. It's non-comedogenic and it's anti-inflammatory. So it is a really great oil. You don't want to use it straight. It is something to be used in a blend of plant-based oils. And at the Spa Doctor, we use a lot of different plant-based oils, but this is one of my favorite ones. Resveratrol, hopefully we get to keep getting this supplement, and it's also beneficial for topical too. And it's anything that we put inside the body that's anti-inflammatory and antioxidant and balancing for the microbiome, it's going to also be that way topically oftentimes. So this is an example of that. And another powerhouse ingredient that we take on supplements is also great to use topically on the skin. And it's anti-inflammatory, no surprise, helps balance the microorganisms, sebum production, and that antioxidant properties. It helps with uneven skin tone. It has this lightening properties, evening of skin tone for people with some melasma or uneven skin tone. It's a nice ingredient to include. And I love sharing these ingredients because they all have just side benefits rather than side effects of some of the synthetic ingredients that can create issues. So it's nice to use natural as much as we can. There's so many great oils for skin. Coconut oil is another great one, especially for atopic dermatitis. It's very hydrating, and it helps with that balance of bacteria on the skin, such as with staph. So there's been some good research on that and managing staph with atopic dermatitis. Coconut oil is great on. I wouldn't recommend coconut oil straight on the face, because it can cause people, especially oilier, more acne-prone patients, to break out if they use straight coconut oil on the face. Now, I'm not saying you can't use coconut oil on the face, because we actually have it in our step 1 of our cleanser in the right form, and it's very virgin pure state, and also in balance with other ingredients. As long as it's not sitting heavy on the skin, and you're using warm water with it as a part of a cleanser, it can actually be really fantastic on the face, but just don't recommend it straight on the face. You can use it straight on the rest of the body, as long as you're not, again, not breaking out acne in those areas of the chest or the back, or being mindful of that. It's also great on the scalp too, to do a scalp treatment for dandruff, dry skin on the scalp. It's a really nice one to do a scalp treatment. So what we put on the skin does impact the skin microbiota. Again, just a reminder, you want to be careful of these antibacterial agents, microbiota disrupting ingredients in both commercial and pharmaceutical use. So think about what you're recommending to your patients, and be aware that there's a lot of a lot of ingredients, a lot of products out there with harmful ingredients. One of the things, as I mentioned before, is about the pH of the skin. What's really interesting about the skin is it has this acid mantle. It's one of the ways that skin barrier function does its job. It keeps the skin resilient in this mildly acidic state. It keeps it resilient, and it keeps the bacterial flora attached to the skin in the right balance. So there's this particular study talked about a pH of 4 to 4.5. When skincare products are oftentimes above 5.5, so we want to be really careful of that. The pH of the skin also correlates to skin hydration, the melanin, wrinkle length, wrinkle depth, and when the skin becomes more acidic, it can actually help with signs of aging of the skin as well. As I mentioned, most of the skincare products out there, especially cleansers, serums, moisturizers, over-the-counter topical medications, have a pH of 5.5 and higher. So what happens with this is actually dries out the skin. It makes it more prone to infections, premature aging. It's because it's really not supporting the barrier function of the skin, not supporting the skin microbiome. And if, I've had people say, oh, well, I just use natural. I just rinse my face with water and use some coconut oil or something along those lines. Well, Even water has a pH of 7 to 8, which is too high for our skin. And so when we're talking about, if you're in a really healthy state, your skin will probably just rebound right back to where it's supposed to be. But if you've got somebody with a skin that their barrier function is breaking down, they've got leaky skin, there's a compromise to the skin barrier function. If they've got skin issues, their skin won't be able to bounce back even with using water. So it's good to use something topically. And so I think this is an important piece. That's why I wanted to talk about doing both internally and externally, because what I find in practice is that, like, for me, for 10 years, the first 10 years of my practice, whenever I had people show up with skin problems, I focus on the inside out. I'd focus from the inside. And I didn't really talk to people about what to put on their skin. I didn't recommend topicals for them to put on because I thought the healthy skin only came from the inside. But then when I started to do more research on skin care ingredients and actual what we do to our skin, procedures we do with our skincare routine, I started to realize how much that actually can help alleviate skin problems. And when we don't address the exterior, we're missing a crucial step in this healing journey. Now, on the other side of this, a lot of dermatologists will just, give a topical. They'll just focus on the outside without looking at the inside. But of course, now with integrative dermatology, we're looking at a combination of the two. And that's really where you're going to get the biggest recovery, the biggest results in your patients. And that's how you upgrade the approach to helping your skin, your patient's skin. And so, yeah, as far as pH goes, you can actually have people test with a pH strip. It's just get a pH strip and you can test most cleansers and serums, toners, moisturizers. You can't, of course, test the pH of an oil or a mostly oil-based product. That's hard to test. We can't test. But anything else, if it's got a pH above 5.5 in particular, and I really like to see 4.6 to 5 in face products, but if it's over 5.5, they need to find something else because it's not going to be helping support that the pH of their skin. And of course, the Spot Doctor products, that was one of the big things why I created the line, was I really wanted every single step of the system to have that ideal pH, and then created the body products too, so that you also have it for the body. Of course, you can't test the pH of step 4 or Glow Boost, but the rest of the products you'll find that it does have that ideal pH. So I wouldn't, I couldn't go through this presentation without at least talking about a few harmful ingredients to talk to patients about, to talk about avoiding. Of course, if you're just going with a natural skincare line like Spot Doctor line, you're not going to have to worry about ingredients like this. But if people are really stuck on their products and really don't want to switch, you can give them a copy of my book. It's got lots of information in there. Or there are resources like Environmental Working Group, EWG.org has a skin deep database, and they've got verified skincare products. The Spot Doctor skincare line is a verified EWG skincare line. And you can actually do a search for an ingredient or a particular product. I have a lot of personal care products in their database, and I'll give it a rating of both toxicity and possible irritation, because even natural ingredients can be irritating for some people, and so you can check that out. But here are 5 that are some of the most important, I would say. If you can only eliminate these, you'd be heading in the right direction. So fragrance has endocrine disrupting chemicals are in fragrance. It's listed as a single word, but certainly not a single ingredient. Things like diethyl phthalate, DEP, are in fragrance to help the smell last longer, but it is a known endocrine disrupting chemical. Then there, of course, the parabens. There are lots of different types of parabens. And it's interesting, when I first, 6 years ago, when I was getting ready to launch the Spot Doctor skincare line, I had some of my patients do paraben tests and looking at using their regular skincare products they were using and doing a test to look at paraben metabolites. and then had them stop using the products. I switched them over to my skincare line and do the test again. And it was really interesting to see the exact type of paraben that was in their skincare product show up on the test. And even with, sometimes people weren't even aware, like they've forgotten that they'd used a product because they were thinking about their face products, they weren't thinking about their body products, and or they put on a self tanner and totally forgot that they'd put it on. And I said, well, what else were you using? Because this butyl paraben is showing up. And they would go, oh wait, and they pull the product and they look at the label and they would tell me, and I go, perfect, okay, that's what it was. It showed up in the sample. So yeah, parabens have been detected in breast tumor tissue. We know that they have estrogen mimicking effects. So I want to be really, a lot of skincare products now have taken parabens out. They've fought it. They didn't want to do it, but the public sort of demanded it. So the more we can kind of push manufacturers to do this sort of thing, it's great. Oxybenzone, there are actually a bunch of different chemical sunscreen ingredients that are the ones you want to avoid, and also have endocrine disrupting effects. And zinc oxide is a much better alternative when it comes to sunscreen. Formaldehyde and formaldehyde releasers. These formaldehyde releasers have all kinds of weird names. DMDM hydantoin, all kinds of bizarre names. You wouldn't necessarily know that it was releasing formaldehyde when you're putting it on your skin, but these are really common ingredients, especially in body products. So again, another one to tell people to avoid. We certainly don't need any extra formaldehyde. And then mineral oil and petroleum-based products, these are so common, and there are concerns about contamination and also about the skin microbiome. What are these doing to the skin microbiome? And so want to be thinking about how can we reduce these? And of course, there are natural alternatives to all of these. Essential oils, organic essential oils are an absolutely fantastic alternative to fragrance. Not only do they not have these endocrine disrupting chemicals in them, but they also have mood enhancing benefits, side benefits. So like the essential oil blend that we use, a lot of our people mention, oh, it's like a relaxing, it's part of my whole self-care routine is to enjoy the scents and the fragrances of the natural essential oils that are in these products. But some people are reactive to essential oils, so then you want to have them go fragrance free at least for a period of time until you get their gut and their skin back on track with addressing any leaky gut or leaky skin issues, get them back on track, and then maybe they'll be able to start using essential oils again. I've mentioned endocrine disrupting chemicals, and I'm sure you're aware of this class of chemicals and how we want to do everything we can to reduce exposure to these endocrine disrupting chemicals. And personal care products are a big way that we're exposed to these. If you think about it, we on average use about 11, 12 or so personal care products a day, which exposes us to, according to the Environment Working Group, we're exposing ourselves to about, on average, 126 unique ingredients on a day-to-day basis. And so, but the problem is these aren't well regulated. The FDA has only banned 11 ingredients in personal care products. In Europe, they've banned over 1,000 ingredients, which is why I started making the Spa Doctor skincare line in the UK, started making it there, and now we make it here in the US because we've identified the same fabulous ingredients and being able to source them in a more cost and time efficient manner, especially during a pandemic. And so these are some of the things, of course, we want to avoid for our patients. So skincare is one of the easiest ways to say, okay, let's just swap this over and start reducing your exposure. So these are what I consider the 3 keys to natural and effective skincare: containing clean and non-toxic ingredients, formulated with natural actives. So just like you want your supplements to have the most natural active form in the right forms and amounts to help your patients, you want the skincare products to have the most active form and in the right amount. There's a lot of marketing hype in the skincare industry. It drives me crazy. Believe me, it drives me crazy to see what people will market out there and say about skincare products and can get away with. And they'll often say, oh, it contains vitamin E or contains CoQ10 or resveratrol, but it's such a small amount. And then also, if you look at the ingredient label, it's also full of things like fragrance and parabens. And so, it's really the combination of these. And then, of course, the skin, the mild acidity, supporting the mild acidity of the skin and that mild acidity range. And then, there's the routine. We want to make sure that people are using the right routine. People ask about this all the time. What do I need to be doing? I feel a lot of women overcomplicate skincare, and that's fine if they have the time for it, because it is something about women. We do often like to pamper. It's part of our self-care, and that's perfectly fine. Just make sure all of the products are clean. But I find that there are a lot of men too that are asking me about skincare products, and it doesn't have to be complicated. And really, it's about cleansing, nourishing, moisturizing, and protecting. And that's why, with the Spa Doctor line, we have a 4-step system, does all 4 of these. And of course, I have to mention it. The clean body person I talk about in my book is reducing the total exposure of environmental toxins, improving the body's detoxification pathways. You're already doing this with your patients, I'm sure. So just keep up the work. It does help with the skin too. And then clean mind is about stress management, asking your patients, reminding them to do at least 5 to 10 minutes of some sort of stress management technique on a day-to-day basis. If they skip a day accidentally, it's not a big deal, but these are really important things. Breath work, taking simple deep breaths, whether that's just a simple 5 count in, 5 count out, so you can just remember the number 5. And there's actually, a lot of good things saying about that's just simple enough and good enough for most people. But you can also, of course, get a lot more detail with breath work. Gratitude, it is one of the easiest ways to shift someone out of a negative emotional state, is to practice gratitude. When you're thankful for something, it's hard to be negative. Meditation, of course, a powerful tool, many different types. Bedtime routine is key. You can have them tie in their skincare routine with it. There's essential oils. Find that great bedtime routine, because sleep is essential for a healthy skin and a healthy body. Nature, stepping into nature, we can't do without it, especially when we think about the skin microbiome. We want those good microorganisms touching our skin. Gardening, getting out, walking barefoot in the grass, on the soil, getting your hands in the dirt. And of course, when people are really, really reactive, and there's people with atopic dermatitis or have a tendency to contact dermatitis, they want to be mindful. They want to be using products on their skin. You want to be addressing those leaky skin issues before they can really enjoy really getting their hands dirty. But even just stepping into nature and walking on a trail and getting a little bit of sunshine can be helpful. And I always tell people, just look at your skin as a positive magic mirror. People oftentimes, and I know this personally from my own skin struggles throughout my life, they can beat ourselves up about our skin. But when we do that, we're not helping ourselves. So using your skin as a positive magic mirror. Looking at your skin is like, it's just trying to tell you something. What is it trying to tell you about your health? And what can we do about it? Let's get to those root causes and address those. I oftentimes direct my patients to, or followers to, a skin quiz I created. It's theskinquiz.com. It's a tricky little way to help people find out their skin personality type and get them to address the root causes behind skin. They'll find out if they're an amber, Olivia, sage, Emmett, or Heath skin type, which really has to do with finding out which of the 6 root causes are important for them. For example, Emmett skin type is more of an eczema, atopic dermatitis, immune-based type of skin problems, also psoriasis. And so with that, I'll recommend certain things to help address balancing the immune system, addressing leaky gut, and decreasing inflammation. So that's an example of how I got around to helping the public with this. This is a picture of me when I was a baby. I was a farm girl, lived on the farm. I loved being in the mud. So we want to get back to nature to optimize our skin microbiome. And really that's, the simplest message of it all. And some of that comes from the inside and some of it comes from the outside. majority of it really does come from the inside, but there is that external part too. I think if I'd spent more time in the mud and less time in the moldy home that I was living in and drinking dairy milk all day long, I probably would have had much healthier skin. But at least I figured it out, and it led me to the path to become a naturopathic doctor. So, all right. So I know I just covered a lot. So I'm happy to answer questions now.
Okay, that was great. Yes, that was a lot, but it was really, really interesting. And I love the idea of, even meditation can help and getting outside and playing in the mud, obviously, that's the best. But I love the presentation. I know there's a lot you can cover, and we had a few questions come through, probably more as we go. Yeah, I already see some coming through. So the first question that came through goes back to the gluten intolerance. So the question is it true that those allergic or have an intolerant to gluten, that it doesn't matter if the skincare products are gluten-free or not, since it's too large to penetrate the skin?
Well, I mean, in theory, that, it's an interesting theory, but what I found is that my patients that are sensitive to gluten eating it, they typically are sensitive to the products in their topical. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you had mentioned that. I think when you're talking about oatmeal as well. The next question, a couple questions surrounding the types of oil. So there's a question asking why, they're just curious about why we wouldn't want to use argan oil alone and why it should only be used in a blend.
Yeah, it's just more because of the texture of it. If you've ever had seen argan oil, it's really, really thick and sticky. So if you try and use it, I mean, it's, sometimes it can be used like in certain areas, like cuticles, or like, and some people use it in, like the ends of dry hair or things like that.
Mm.
But it's usually, when you see argan oil, it's usually mixed with something else, because especially when used on the face, it's just too thick and sticky.
Yeah. Okay, so sorry. And then the next, also about this type of oil. Do you see a use for castor oil in dermatology conditions?
Yeah, I actually really like castor oil for the body. I have a DIY recipe that I recommend for people that's includes castor oil and using it as a body cleanser. Oils can be great cleansers for the skin. And when you're using oil for cleansing, and I know people that have oily prone skin, they always say, "Oh no, I can't do that." But really,
Yeah.
if you're using the right oils for skin and the right balance in the right ways, it actually helps balance the sebum in the skin. And castor oil is one that has a really great cleansing property. It is kind of sticky, so I do blend it with other oils. And I mean, like lighter oils, the other opposite end of the spectrum, for example, is jojoba oil. Jojoba oil is very light, and it can actually be used on the face pretty well. And so if you want to thin out and, something thicker like castor oil, you could use jojoba. Sweet almond oil is, just a step down as far as thickness and texture. But it's also very nourishing, full of, vitamin E and fabulous nutrients for the skin. So you could do a blend of that, and just cleansing the skin. We use, castor oil for castor oil packs and things like that. So it's a great one.
And very interesting. Does the pH of natural oils and butters vary, or are they similar in range?
So with oil, we go back to chemistry class. You can't actually
Yeah.
measure pH unless it has water. So if it's 100% oils, it just doesn't have a pH. It's just the nature of the chemistry of it, the chemical makeup of it. So, but there are oils that tend to help the acid mantle, to help support the acid mantle, like argan oil. Sea buckthorn fruit oil is another one of my favorites. Pomegranate fruit oil, raspberry seed oil. These are all in Spot Doctor products, and there's a reason why I use them, because I love all of these and did a lot of research on my favorite ingredients and put them all into the products. People always say to me, "What's your signature ingredient in your product?" And I'm like, all of them.
That's great. Actually, a question that just came through and I'm quite interested in too is, what is your opinion on cleansing one's face once a day at night, say, versus twice a day? I think you may have touched on this too, but.
No, I talked about this step by step, but yeah, it is. I do recommend people do twice a day. And again, it's, so there are different reasons for morning versus night. So morning, we're waking up, we've been through a nighttime of perspiring, of heat, especially for our perimenopausal, menopausal women that might be, hot flashes, night sweats at night, and they're perspiring, or people that heat up at night. Your skin can go through a lot of changes at night, and it's a very restorative time. So it's a great, a great time for our skin. But waking in the morning, it's important to, I think, to go through the whole process, doing a good cleanser. And one of the biggest mistakes people make in skincare, a skincare routine, is the cleanser. Most of the cleansers out there, the pH is really high, and they're using a bar of soap, or they're using a foamy kinds of cleanser that actually strips all the beneficial oils, or a lot of the beneficial oils, off the skin, disrupting the pH, disrupting that barrier function of the skin, and then the skin has to work harder to restore that back up. Whereas if you're actually using a cleanser with a mild acidity, and even with some oils in it, some of these natural plant-based oils that are lighter on the skin, it actually helps with cleansing without stripping. So it's balancing and cleansing at the same time. So then after that point, you don't actually need a toner. So a lot of people use a toner because they are having to remove extra stuff that their cleanser didn't do, or to restore that mild acidity of the skin. But if you're using a good cleanser, you don't actually need a toner. Then I just suggest a serum, because serums actually are a great way to get in a lot of antioxidants. They absorb rapidly into the skin, and then follow that with a moisturizer. And really doing this in the night too is great, because in the nighttime, we go through this whole routine again, because for women, or a lot of women wear makeup, or if you're wearing sunscreen, or just walking around with the air pollution, debris settling on your skin, dust on your skin, and that oxidizing of oils, whatever's going on with your skin, you want to cleanse your skin before going to bed, because it's that really restorative time. And if I would say the only difference between morning and nighttime is that you're going in the sun, in the morning after you do your routine, zinc oxide based sunscreen for sun protection. And then in the evening, sometimes people like a little extra hydration. So we have the plant-based oil blend. So I tell people, you just use a little extra of the plant-based oil blend, have more of that night cream kind of feel, to have that extra hydration at night.
Very interesting. I know we're getting close to time, but there's one maybe quick question. A bunch are coming through, so thank you guys all for these great questions. But do you suggest some key testing paths to investigate when assessing root causes for the conditions you talked about today?
I'm sorry, can you ask that again?
Yeah, I said that's so funny. Can you suggest some key testing paths to investigate when assessing root causes for some of the conditions you talked about today?
Testing is a big subject, but when we talk about the root causes that I talked about, those you look at microbiome. We want to, looking for gut dysbiosis can be an important test to do. When you're looking at hormonal imbalances, doing something like, the Dutch test, or something along those lines. Really, it depends on what we're looking at. I do see, and maybe this is related to this, there's a question about which pH strips to use, because maybe that testing products too. pH strips, as long as it contains the pH range, say from like 4 to 8 or so, then you can use any. You can just order them on Amazon, the little rolls or the strips. I kind of like the little strips. I wish my video was working so you guys can actually see. I'm pulling up something right now and realizing that my video is not working. But yeah, they're easy to find. Yeah.
Well, I know we're at time, and we want to be conscious of your time and everyone else's time too. So this was jam-packed full of information. Thank you so much. It was great. I do want to remind everyone that this is being recorded, so you will get access to the recording shortly. You can find it on our website as well, fullscript.com/webinars. And thank you again, Dr. Cates, for this great presentation. We hope we can have you again and see your face next time as well. I'm sorry about the technology issues we had.
Of course, thanks for having me. And I have my email address here, so if anybody else has any questions, you can just email me.
That's great. And maybe we can include that as well as a link to the skin quiz and your book and everything, and anything else, any other resources too. I know that you said the spa doctors in the Fullscript catalog as well. So we can attach some resources with the follow-up and provide attendees and registrants with some extra goodies.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.